It's a harsh world that man runs, and finding your place in that world is something as old as the concept of civilization itself. It's kind of a never-ending cycle that there's no real solution to, because you're trying to build stability in a chaotic world that is unpredictable. Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to click the like button and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. There's been a very interesting story going around for the last, I think since the end of January, since the last few days of January. I first saw this as a notification on my phone's internal news app, whatever it is that comes with the phone. It pops up news stories every now and then. I usually don't pay much attention to them. I usually just see the headline and move on. But this one was one of those stories that was interesting enough for me to look up. I wondered, wow, could this really be happening? And I looked it up and read a bit more about it. And it's about this proposed joint currency between Argentina and Brazil. Now, this is something that has been proposed before. There has been movement toward such a currency in the past, but it has never gone through all the way. It's never been accomplished. It's never been put into use. But the topic has come up again, and I want to read some excerpts from some of the news articles talking about this. These are articles in English from American news organizations about this proposed joint currency. All right, this is from Reuters, January 23rd. As Brazil and Argentina sparked some excitement on Sunday over the possibility of a potential currency union, though the two countries are unlikely to ditch the real or peso anytime soon. So what is the plan all about? In a joint letter, new Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Argentine leader Alberto Fernandes said they wanted to advance discussions on a common South American currency to be used for financial and trade flows. That sparked off chatter about a European Union-style zonal currency for South America, though officials have since played that down, and analysts say a full-on currency union is a distant prospect. Lula has since said that early talks are focused on developing a shared unit of value for bilateral trade to reduce reliance on the US dollar. So some information from other stories I've read is that trade between Argentina and Brazil hasn't been very big historically. Trade between both countries is only a small fraction of either country's international trade, but it is a significant amount. And of course, they're being neighbors, and both with very large and growing populations, and Brazil having a huge and growing manufacturing industry, Argentina and Brazil both having very large agricultural and other resource sectors, as well as large service sectors. There's a huge amount of potential for increasing trade between the two countries. They could provide each other with a lot of what they need from foreign trade. So though this currency, it wouldn't be like the euro, it's not as if they're going to put aside their national currencies and adopt a new currency. This could be something used for financial transactions between parties in either country, which would greatly strengthen and increase the ties and the amount of trade between the two. Now, there have been a number of attempts at bringing the different countries of South America closer in their trade and financial ties. This has been a ongoing process with, both success and steps back. But, seeing these two leading nations in South America make these kinds of steps forward in the direction of more union could really push a number of these initiatives forward, especially if it's successful. If this actually comes about, that would be a big deal. I mean, just the fact that they're talking about it is newsworthy. If they actually pull it off, if they actually start using such a currency, that would be quite a step forward towards closer economic ties, and I'm sure would push forward a number of other proposed initiatives that have been theorized on or even are in early developmental stages. And of course, if such a thing were to be implemented and were to be adopted by different companies and financial institutions, I think we could be sure that other countries would also want to join in. Uruguay and Paraguay would be very obvious candidates due to their closeness to the economies of Brazil and Argentina. That other major South American economies would also likely want to participate in such a scheme if it were successful. Venezuela, of course, is a country that has long been pushing for more economic unity between South American countries. They're kind of in the role of what Libya used to be, trying to push for more African unity, with Libya being kind of an oddball country that a lot of the established world, the established Western world, didn't like. And that's the same kind of situation Venezuela has been in. And again, they're trying to make a new kind of order that they can participate in and benefit from. So they've been a major pusher for greater South American unity. Who knows what kind of role Venezuela could play in any closer ties between Brazil and Argentina, but I'm sure all these different countries and their leaders, and certainly the economic theorists in these countries, are going to be looking for what could be the next step to integrate their economies, make them tighter, make them safer, if this initiative goes ahead. Now, of course, the reason that is being cited for being behind this is something I've already touched on. If we compare this to, what Libya was trying to do in the past, what Venezuela has tried to do, countries are wary of being left out of the dominant global economic system based around the euro and the dollar. Countries see what can happen if they fall out of favor with the United States, fall out of favor with NATO, fall out of favor with international banking institutions, or indeed, in the case of some countries in Latin America, as has very often happened, simply falling out of favor with major American corporations can get you on the bad list and get you isolated and sanctioned and punished. So there's always been this idea in the back of people's minds that they need to find a new type of order that they can participate in, an order that can't kick them out. Just think about it, that's how it is with personal relationships too. If you're in something that you depend on, and then you realize that structure, that system, that circle of trust, whatever it is, if that can turn against you, if that can make you an outsider, if that can take away something important from you, then you're not going to trust it, and you're going to want to find some other kind of structure, system, circle that you can participate in that isn't going to hurt you. It happens with people, and it happens with countries. Now, in the first several decades after the Second World War, there was a bipolar world. That's a kind of a fitting name for the way things were going, where you had the United States and the United Kingdom on one side of things, and then the Soviet Union on the other side. And these two powers were trying to pull countries into their economic circles or keep them out, depending on what their interests were at the time, depending on how they viewed a country, its location, its assets, and its form of government. The world's major powers treated them in different ways, and it created quite a bit of instability and turmoil for different countries. As countries became powerful in their own right, that started changing. Soviet Union is no more. Russia is not a great economic power. China, however, is. But what can countries expect from China, and how can they expect to deal within a Chinese system? That's still kind of unknown. India has been slow to play that game. They like to stay independent. They do seem to be a little more open to having closer ties with China, Russia, and some of these other countries that aren't part of the Western sphere of influence, but they themselves are vulnerable and not quite yet a superpower. So for countries like Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, Iran, Egypt, Mexico, there's all these major countries with huge populations, huge economies, but they aren't powerful enough to be a system to themselves like India or China or the United States can be. So they are looking for something to be a part of. Mexico, of course, very closely tied to the United States and Canada. Those three countries are pretty much indispensable to each other. Brazil is a very significant trading partner of the United States, but they are not quite completely integrated into that system. So they're seeking for what we could call stability partners. Countries all around the world are doing this, trying to find their place, trying to find the connections that they can depend on to offer themselves a safe and stable path forward. And this is really something as old as civilization itself. You find examples of this in the oldest histories. You find this in the Bible where, some small kingdom is trying to find who to partner with, what great power they can latch onto. People trying to find their place in a tough world that is based around power, gain, wealth, conquest, dominion over others. It's a harsh world that man runs, and finding your place in that world is something as old as the concept of civilization itself. It's kind of a never-ending cycle that there's no real solution to, because you're trying to build stability in a chaotic world that is unpredictable and unreasonable, really. I want to read a bit from the Gospel of Matthew. This helps to explain, again, as we talk about so much, the difference between the world, where man's systems reign, and the kingdom of God, where God's plan is carried out. They're different, They seek different things. They run on different principles. One leads to life, and the other leads to a constant struggle for survival, as we were talking about. So here in Matthew chapter 19, Jesus says unto his disciples, "Verily I say unto you, that a rich man shall hardly enter into the kingdom of heaven. And again I say unto you, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom of God." When his disciples heard it, they were exceedingly amazed, saying, "Who then can be saved?" But Jesus beheld them and said unto them, "With men this is impossible, but with God all things are possible." Wow. Then answered Peter and said unto him, "Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore?" And Jesus said unto them, "Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone that has forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or fathers, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first." Well, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please leave your comments below, and I will see you next time.